Wholeness, beautiful beings. Welcome. Welcome to Notes of Nara. My name is Nadja Rashida, and may this message find you well and whole. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for being here. And let's just jump right into it. So today's topic for heart, our subject of the month, we're going to look into the what is, what if game, or games, I should say. So, as you all are probably aware, I'm going through major transitions internally as well as externally in my life. I just got back from an international trip and, abroad, and just expanding. I'm very much entering into a new season in my life, and I'm also embodying the state of being that's very expansive right now. I'm just, and it's a lot, because when you find yourself weaning yourself off of an old story that just doesn't fit, or a shoe that doesn't fit anymore. You've outgrown the shoe, and then you try to put that shoe back on, and it's painful, right? And that's kind of, I would say I've outgrown that pattern. And it's funny enough, I'm revisiting something that I've closed the door on, but I am very much a changed person. And so with that, when you're stepping into the unknown, when you're stepping into a space where you lose control over the roles that you play and that other people have played. You lose control over that tension, that I'll say that connection you have with the story. For example, have you ever read a book, a storyline, a narrative that you're so hooked into, and you become so locked in on the page and on the words and the images that are being painted in your head, and you're just so locked in? Well, now with this expansive, where, the never ending story, right? Like that story, right? The world begins to crumble, and that hook begins to dissolve, and you're there having to develop your faith in faith. And so what tends to happen that I've found, and this is more of an external observation, is that our ego likes, it likes to play, it likes to be fed, it likes to be involved. It loves to be involved in whatever shift, whether that's a great experience you're entering into or you're leaving a not so great experience. It wants to be part of it all, right? Of whatever you got going on. And so the what if game is all ego mind. The what if game it stops you in your tracks. It keeps you locked into the future, a very future mode. It's very, very future focused. It takes you down certain rabbit holes. You're thinking you're being productive because you're preparing, right? You're preparing for the unknown by playing the what if game. You're the loser. Yeah. And the winner is the ego being fed. And I'm not one like, you gotta destroy the ego, kill the ego. You try to kill the ego, you're really gonna harm yourself. It is not about killing the ego, number one. It's just not about that. It's about observing the voice of the ego, identifying, increasing and expanding your awareness of ego. Ego is just there. And I feel like the only way to actually kill the ego would be to kill the ego of the whole human collective consciousness. That would be something. But we're not quite there yet, where it's a collective evolution that goes beyond that. The ego becomes completely neutralized in a global scale in the human species. That's a dream, right? That's a desire. I would say, most human beings that are aware of ego, right, within themselves and within society, they desire that. Who doesn't? To just be completely free of ego and live in a society that reflects that. But no, that's not how it is. So to just as a side note in this discussion, being mindful to, because I've, in my path, I have seen what happens when people try to kill the ego, and they end up developing some very serious mental health problems that actually, unfortunately, I can think of one individual, self-harm. Like, that's the extent that I'll go. It can be very dark path trying to kill the ego. But with the what if game, the ego can be fed. So with this, you lock into future mode. You lock into the pure potentiality, but in a very limited way. And you're thinking you're doing something. You're thinking you're being creative. You're thinking you're being proactive. You're thinking you're making progress, but you're not. It's like you are taking 5 steps forward and 10 steps back, or 5 steps forward, 15 steps back. It's very regressive. It's very oppressive. It's very suppressive, right? Of whatever you got going on. What if game? What if this happens? What if that happens? What if this happens? Okay, then we need to prepare for that. And so it takes you out. It robs you the present. It rips you from the present moment. And here's the thing, and this is what involves the heart space. What is? What is? Asking yourself that. What is true in this moment? What is true in this situation? What is true for me? What is true? And here's another thing about the what is. It brings you back into the present moment. You're very upset, hurt, stressed about something. Usually it's always something outside of your control at that moment. And you get trapped into the what if game. You get trapped into the past or future modes, and it has nothing to do with the present moment. But my feelings are valid. How I feel is valid because this happened to me in the past, or how I feel, this anxiety of what could happen in the future, and I don't know how to prepare for what could happen, right? But is that happening now in the present moment? Being here now is not superficial. It's deep. It's deep, right? And it can be a very profound experience when you snap out of that. What is real to you? What is true to you? And it brings you back to you. That's another thing, because with the what if game, you externalize so much of your power. What if he doesn't love me? What if she doesn't take me back? What if they don't hire me? What if the living situation is this? What if the living situation is that? What if? And you're fragmenting yourself. You're fragmenting your mental power, your mental energy. And that causes great stress on the body, causes great stress on the heart, and your overall well-being. And so when you ask yourself what is, it makes you that accountable for your emotions, right? For example, if you get in an argument with a loved one, you ask yourself, what is true in this moment? Okay, I feel angry. Okay, right? Because how can when we ask ourselves what is true at this moment, it's very hard to try to project a truth onto somebody else, because your perspective is going to be your perspective, their perspective is going to be their perspective. And when there's a conflict, there's a lot of projections going on, a lot of misunderstandings, a lot of miscommunication, because we're too busy projecting our truths or our version onto somebody else, and not slowing down and paying attention to, or listening to their version, listening to them, listening to their story, listening to their interpretation of the situation. And then us as well, like they're listening to us. There's a breakdown. So when you ask yourself, if you're in the middle of a conflict, what is? What is now? What is present? emotional upheaval is very difficult to sit with. It's very difficult to be present with, because you really just want to get out of your head, right? You want to get out of having to feel. And I've had people disagreement with me on this, like, like, no, you don't understand. My mind just keeps, it goes down this wormhole. It goes down into a very deep, a dark, horrible place that I can't get out of if I'm too present with my current feelings. So then, there's psych meds, they're for depression and anxiety, bipolar, neurological disorders. They're very, very, very difficult to just be so present with, right? So there's definitely some exceptions to what I'm saying. And again, I am not a certified doctor, licensed doctor, psychologist, psychiatrist. I do enjoy the psychology of the human mind, but I want to make that abundantly clear. I'm not trying to impose any, if you do have serious issues, right, when it comes to processing, emotional setbacks or mental blockages and things that can, like there's a thing called repetitive thoughts or something. I can't think of it. There's a term for it, where things just keep going over and over and over in your head, and that could be a neurological disorder, right? So again, I as someone who has experience working in mental health field and in healthcare, I am not blind to this. But my point is, there's a difference between focusing on what is versus focusing on the what ifs. The what ifs game really can suck the magic out of the present moment. The present is called the present because it is a gift, because that is the ultimate time to where you're active. The choices that you're choosing at that moment are literally creating and placing you in alignment to receive whatever's coming your way. And it has something to do with cyclical time, as I've mentioned before, that time is a sphere and not a straight line. And and if you're desiring a certain outcome, you can't get locked into the what if. The present moment will guide you. The present moment will guide you. The present moment will guide you. And I said that 3 times because I believe in the power of 3, but I said that 3 times because it is so, so important. I'm going through it as well. Like I'll say this again, if you haven't watched, or if you're new to my channel, I'm juggling a lot. There are multiple balls that I'm juggling in the air. And there's one analogy that an old colleague that I no longer work with, but she mentioned, how you're either juggling plastic balls or you're juggling glass. And it's really important to know when to let the plastic ones fall, because that they're not going to shatter, right? And sometimes once in a blue moon, you let a glass one fall and it shatters, right? And it's a very different type of issue. But yeah, the what if game, it's not healthy. And I think I'm very much have graduated from that approach, because 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, very different space that I was in, obsessively thinking, well, what if? The present moment is the ultimate guide, because it will lead you to the very next step. The thing is, when I say lead you to the very next step, it leads you to the very next step because you're ready to receive the next step. In cyclical time, there is order, but it's a very different type of order. It's almost like you have a desire as a child to become, an astronaut. Okay. And you're 7 years old, and you have this dream to go to the stars, to travel, to explore the cosmos, to explore a galaxy, to visit the moon, to land on Mars, right? And in order to get there, right, we're already embedded in cyclical spheric time. We're just tricked into believing that time is just like a line, and it's not. Linear time is very, very stuck on like dimensions, the perpendicular, very boxy, very structured. So the what if game, playing the what if game in the cyclical sphere of time it just prolongs the effort. It further pulls you away from what truly is meant for you. Because the what if game creates new timelines. The what if game creates new timelines and new outcomes. And usually the what if game is activated and fed by your lower nature, unhealed parts of your lower nature. Your higher nature is guiding you towards what is truly meant for you. But your lower nature, if unchecked and not regulated and not cleansed properly on a daily basis, you're actively creating a reality and a manifestation that isn't really for you. We're actively creating and manifesting in the present moment, and there are many practices that can put you more in alignment of the cyclical spheric time frame. I don't even want to use the word frame. It's not framed. It's way more expansive, and it moves very fluidly, and things begin to pick up their pace, right? In cyclical time, things don't work as, okay, 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, 4 step. It's when you are truly ready to receive. You completed something, you completed a cycle, so then now you're ready for the next cycle, which we like to call steps, okay? So there's another very important point I wanted to make. I guess I'm dibble-dabbling into quantum physics a bit. Right? Because, with the story of, being a child and having a desire to become an astronaut. And being in alignment to receive the opportunity to do that. And, a lot of the time we get, they say, oh, you want to be an astronaut. Okay, well, then you have to naturally be gifted in mathematics, right? IQ is probably high and exceptional. Gifted students, right? At a very young age, usually this is recognized. And so these certain attributes put you in alignment, all right, to receive certain opportunities that will put you in cycles, right? In certain cycles and certain patterns and certain mindsets that create a magnetic pull towards you. So I'm not saying that things come easy to you, but you just become more magnetic. You pull things and certain opportunities, and these certain opportunities, you're gonna have to put in the effort. Like astrophysicists put in a ton of work, of effort, mastery. That it's no joke. They get paid very well. They have a very full life, and what I mean by that, it consumes them. I mean, it's beautiful. I've always admired mathematicians. Truly, it's a beautiful gift. beautiful gift. I've always admired those where math came so fluently, like learning a language, right? It's beautiful. And in music, I'm more naturally inclined for music and art because it's and I will say, activating the magnetic, your internal magnet, the what's called receptivity, the ability to receive, right? And placing yourself in alignment of the cycles that are meant for you. That's most important. That's part about being present in the moment, allowing the present moment to be your guide to the next step. When you focus on what is, okay? And so, yeah, as an young astrophysicist, so the child will learn math very quickly, high IQ, gifted student, right? They'll probably be invited to go to this school and tuition is paid for, or maybe not. And that's another thing. It doesn't mean that when you become magnetic and you play the what is game that you're not going to face blocks, you're not going to face challenges. That can be quite misleading as well, that I find in the conscious community, in the spirit, new age, new thought community, that it's, if you just focus on the now and you focus on expanding your magnetism, that manifesting is just going to come so quickly and things are just going to be super easy. Being 100% present or 85% present takes patience. It takes a lot of practice. Mindfulness helps. It's something that isn't an easy feat because you're having to let go of control. You're having to step into the unknown, knowing, and deepening your faith in faith itself. Faith in yourself, unlocking the spirit of faith within you. All things are always working for us. The universe is always working for us. Always. Is it uncomfortable? Hell no. Hell no. Not all the time. When it is comfortable, magical, mystical, amazing. It's uplifting. And that's what I mean by space of neutrality. You have to be careful, all birds have to land and all seeds must sprout from the ground. It can't just hide in the deep and in the dark, and the bird can't just continue to fly on and on and on and on and on. No, it must rest, it must land, it must ground itself, it must sleep, it must lay its eggs to continue for the next generation to come. There's always must be balance, and I find that presence is that balance. The what if game, as long as you can identify when you're playing the what if game, you're already there. I find it's humans, we tend to make things way more complex. Maybe it is ego, maybe it is, but we love to make things super hard. And I find that with the what if game, that's fear. And they're like, well, foresight or intuition and premonitions and all those other things that haven't happened yet, and you get insight, you get you're able to see, you're able to hear things and see things before they happen. That's a completely different thing than we'll have another discussion about. But be aware of the what if game and realize what's real, what's tangible right in front of you, what you feel right at this moment. What is what is, and you can't change that. And sometimes we develop a I would have to say we mislead ourselves. Someone sent me a quote today, a dear one of my heart, and it was pretty deep, because this quote, what did it say? Most people most people don't see what is, but what is it? I'm gonna have to look that up. But basically was saying that we're usually, how we perceive what is basically just a reflection of how we see ourselves. It's a reflection of who we are, right? It's never really the truth. It's always how we are interpreting ourselves that come in it comes in different forms and comes in different shapes. And we think it's other, but it really isn't other. It's just another version of us. Be aware of the what if game. Don't get locked into that. I'm learning that now, having to juggle so much now. And it's fun, like the juggling now. Like, it wasn't last year. It wasn't I didn't know what game I was playing and what game I was a part of. And I was going along with a different cycle that isn't really for me. Now, with this revisitation that I'm embarking on, now it's very clear to me. My eyes are open. My eye is open, right? My heart is open, and I can see, I can feel. I'm present now with myself. Be aware of the what if game in others. That's when you know. And, it's a very important thing. When you listen to people talk about their future, or they talk about their dreams, they talk about their worries, they talk about their wounds, they're going through some kind of transformative change in their life, you're going to hear the what if game very loudly. And I'm not going to say that what they're feeling is invalid. I'm not doing that. It's their personal human experience. But be aware, and allow them to just, say what they need to say, but also point out to them if it feels right in that present moment to do so. Hey, solve this whole what if. What is? What is in this very moment? What is? Not what if. Because our minds are so beautiful, so powerful. We can create worlds with our mind. This is what the shadow elite, do not want. That's why they're pushing this VR, virtual reality agenda. They're programming, conditioning us to be more open and more fluid and more guarded, or less guarded. They're preparing so that they can try to control the worlds that we are naturally meant to create. They can't operate on that level, on that high frequency, where you literally close your eyes and you can create worlds. That's why we have movies. Did you know? That's why we have movies. That's why these movies are powerful, because they're projections of the worlds, our own internal worlds. That's why we can relate to them so much, no matter the genre. Film noir, sci-fi, romance, comedy, adventure, epic adventures, horror. It's all a projection of the worlds that we carry within ourselves. So yeah, be aware of the what if game. It's okay to try, be present and be prepared, right? It's better to be ready, then, stay ready, then get ready, right? I don't know the saying. There's a saying for that. But anyway, I don't want to make this longer than a half hour, because a half hour is time. It's energy. And so I will see you soon. Please enjoy this. Let me know your inner thoughts if you desire to share. Again, I am on the journey with you. We're all in the journey of life. And so I humbly state that this platform is just me expressing from experience, from observation, most importantly from love, the love I have within myself. So thank you so much for your engagement. Thank you so much for being here, and may this message find you well and whole. Remember to expand your consciousness, embrace your inner being, and evolve your human being. Thank you.